Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Seed Talk podcast brought to you by Sports Tech Atlanta. It's good to be back. Hope everybody had, so far, good holiday season, good summer going on. I know the last thing we finished off on was our, what your summer drink was going to be. What's going to keep you nice and relaxed? Sterling, how have you been through the summertime? They either call it the dog days of summer because there's not a lot of sports going on, or it could be the best time for people. So how you been doing?
Yeah, it's not bad. I was at Summer League, which was great. Great to be in the room with some people and hanging out and doing that thing. And then I got the flu, so I've been in the house, and now it's back to the grindstone, as they say.
So were you fake bougie out at Vegas? Let me ask you that. I'm glad you brought up Summer League, because Summer League, if for folks that don't know, NBA after the draft, the first action that the rookies get to see, and you have some second, maybe third-year players that are still trying to crack the roster and show the league, show the NBA teams what they have to be able to contribute in some way, maybe off the bench in some way, shape, or form as a low veteran that they can sign. So Summer League happens every summer in Las Vegas now, since that is now I would say it's always been the adult playground or Walt Disney World for folks, but they're continuing to evolve and bring more events there. And so Summer League has been a staple for the final. It does have round robin games, kind of in that Western League area as well, different locations, but everything culminates at T-Mobile Arena. Is that it? I think, Sterling, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the heart of Vegas. And so I always wonder.
Over at UNLV, yeah.
I always wonder, because every time you go to Vegas, you see, I'll say one. I was going to say one of two, but one of three people when you go to Vegas. Mm-hmm. And this is when we get off commercial flights, people. I'm not talking people that are on PJs. You're in a different bracket than I am, that I haven't experienced. So I can't relate to you in this moment. But for everybody else, which I feel is a lot of our listeners, there's one of three people you see when you step off that Spirit flight for a lot of folks. Maybe, hopefully Delta. But I feel like it's Spirit out there. You get off, you see I'm a baller. Okay. You took Delta. You had to. I like that you had to clarify real quick, so no one thought you took that nonstop 90. I mean, you can't beat $60 off the rip, but then they get you everywhere else when you get on Spirit. But you see the one person that's gonna come off real flashy, look like they're a baller. It might be designer head to toe, but we're sitting row 47 when they got off the flight. Then you got the middle of the way, man, that you're like, I don't know what you got, but the bag, it's kind of I'll say it's a maybe possibly designer. It's a really it's a discreet logo, but it's really sleek. You got the good jeans, you got the good shirt on, so you can't really tell which way this person flows, but you see that they're middle woman Dan. So right now we have designer head to toe, real flashy coming off. You got middleman Dan, and then you just got the bottom of the barrel. You're like, how did you get this ticket on this flight? I'm a little bit worried when you walk by. You look like you're musty. Picture Post Malone, even though Post Malone got a lot of money. If I saw Post Malone walk on my flight, I'm clutching my pearls. So you got those three type of people that ended up getting off your flight at Vegas. And Sterling, I wonder, who are you when you get off? Are you going to be the person that tries to act like they got it when they get there, just so that you can try and when you walk around, people think that there's some type of aura, some type of air about you? Or do you just keep your lane to try and be, real indiscreet? Let's say I like to be, when you look at me, it's real mysterious about what I got going on. Maybe I don't have a lot going on, but it looks like I do, or I do and I don't. Or do you go out there just looking like a bum?
I never try to look like a bum. I feel like I am of the age group and how I grew up that there's a couth to you, right? There's a decorum to you. So yeah, I think you can't really go out there. This is like the epitome of like the Kevin Hart joke, right? Like my checkings and my savings, because you're around people that really have it, right? Especially when like you're working within the sports and athletes and stuff like that, right? So I think if you try to go in acting like you're something that you're not. I think people can smell that pretty easily. So no, I mean, I think it's a nice thing for me. I am who I am. I think at this point in life, like there's not a lot changing. So it's like, no, I you know, I mean, I bought a couple things just because I wanted some like shorts and stuff like that. But like, you know, you go out there, try to represent yourself and like who you want people to kind of see you as. And now for me, I mean, I was at like a Kuzma party, and there was one party I went to which was in the MGM like suites, right? So like I had stayed at the MGM a few months back, right? And to be honest, I'm not. It's a Marriott property now, but
use those points. I got you.
I feel like the MGM is like, to your point, you get this sect of people that go to Vegas and you're like, how did you even get here? Yeah. And so that's what I remember when I stayed there. Now to your point, I was staying in a normal room, right? And you're dealing with like the elevators are always packed. I think there were a couple of like AAU tournaments or volleyball tournaments when I was there. So just like you just have like creatures walking around. I don't mean that disrespectfully. It is what it is.
We're being objective. I think it's an objective take when you're.
But no, this time I went in and like you walk in, and then right when you walk in the gym, like they always have like a big boxing kind of thing set up because obviously they do a lot of boxing matches at the MGM. And once you walk past that, there's like a little room you would never really know it's there, right? To your right, and that's where you walk in to be buzzed up for the suites. And
like that discreet check-in. Let's go real incognito around the corner.
It's super discreet. Like it's right behind like. I guess I'm giving it away. Whatever. It's right behind like a couple slot machines, right before you even get to like the first bar on the main floor. And I remember getting up there, and then I got into like the villa, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this is different. This is a different room that I stayed in when I was here." And no, you're just like, and I again in those scenarios and those things, like I can't be anything other than myself, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also not a flashy person, so like. I mean, I wear a watch, but like that's really about it. And now I'm in a polo and a hat, like I always am. So
okay, keeping it right down the middle. I always say when you come to Vegas, and I don't go to Vegas all the time, so I check in at the regular check-in counter. So I feel like a lot of folks, you can relate to my situation, but I do peer over into the VIP check-ins, the check-in side, and there's like you said, there's different levels. So you have the one that you do see that is right off of the main check-in kind of kiosk areas. And you're like, I would love to get the kind of red, white glove treatment. They got a little bottle, a glass of champagne. But then, like you said, Sterling, then there's the area that looks like, you're going into a speakeasy. And you're like, I had no idea that room even led to something like that. That's the area that I need to be in. That's what I would love to be able to be in. But also, it's twofold. Because on one side, you're like, do they just have it like that in real life, or have you spent so much money here that's the reason why you can get into that area? And I think it's a little bit of mixture of both, because I respect my money. It hurts me when I lose $5 on a scratch off. So I can't imagine throwing $10K down, $50K at a table and just watching it evaporate and then be like, you know what, I'm just going to go back and get more. That's where you said like you said, you have to understand what your limits are. And sometimes putting the stopgap or putting a limit on your card if you're heading out to Vegas so that you can't pull more out at the ATM will be your best friend. Give yourself training wheels like you are like a 3-year-old.
No, it's funny you say that. So one of the Kuzma events was at the High Roller in the Wynn. And I walk in, like I said, I'm wearing jeans, polo, nothing crazy. And you had to walk in and then walk through to like this back room, to your point, which you would never know is back there. And the people in the High Roller room look like, it's like you really shouldn't be you really shouldn't be in here.
Because there's one thing that you have to have on you. Like you can wear or walk around in jeans, t-shirt, and that's what a lot of people that have a lot of money aren't going to be particularly flashy. You always look to the image of what Steve Jobs has, always wearing like the dad New Balances and just a black shirt, or like Mark Zuckerberg, people that are super, I'll say very, smart or nerdy is the perception is for them that they don't put their value into those things. And I kind of line that way because what's the point? It's a depreciating asset. But when you walk into those rooms, even if you are wearing just jeans and a t-shirt, you got to have the rollie on. If someone's like, oh, okay, I see you with like a Daytona on or something, or like if you're somehow you had a submarine, like that's where it comes in. Or like if you're wearing, some type of designer watch or something that has just one keynote factor to it, where it's like, all right, I would like to let's have a conversation because I see what you're rocking. You got $30 on for the fit, but maybe the wrist is heavy, but the wrist isn't gaudy. So there's a difference between being flashy with it and something that has that, I would say, minimalistic nature to it that has a ton of value that you do see and miss when you're out in the street. If it's not something that that catches your eye or something that you're particularly fancy and take a liking to, that basically understand. I'm still learning about it, but I would say, yeah, if you didn't have that on, what you should have done.
Nice watch on, but to your point, everybody else had
that Timex, that Fossil on. Hey, Fossil looks good. If you know how to rock a Fossil, you know how to rock it. It looked good though.
I don't know the last time I wore a Fossil, but but no, to your point, there's levels to even when you have a nice watch on, like levels to like, yeah, it's crazy. It's just a crazy world, right? So
yeah. Vegas is just completely different, but I'm glad you had a good time out at Summer League outside of getting your flu when you got back, which is tough, but leads to being able to sit around and dive in and finding more information about what's going out here in this space. Ain't that right?
Yeah, man, I'm excited. There's, we got one big discussion. We'll talk about private equity in college sports, especially from our perspective. Taylor being the former UConn standout and me being the Indiana baseball guy. But before we get there, really just two quick kind of things we want to highlight that I think really just kind of popped and hit my radar, and I think it's super interesting. So the first is Redale Communications. They launched Ref Suite, which is a comprehensive ecosystem combining hardware, software, cloud services, and remote operations to enhance sport officiating, coaching, and production. So this is going to be intertwined into VAR. You're going to see this in all of the in the Euro leagues coming down the pipeline here. Not sure if this will be integrated into World Cup for 26, but interesting news as we get closer and closer and closer to really automated officiating, right? And the ability to make sure that even in something like soccer, football as they call it, that the calls are right and you're able to, I guess, be able to track what you're doing and from a production perspective, put it into the broadcast. I think that's like a big thing, right? Is being able to take, okay, it might be missed. Like the ABS system, I think, is going to do a good job of that, right? All right, you missed the call. How do we integrate this into the broadcast system to make it more seamless and not where it's super clunky where it is in the NBA? Taylor, what'd you think about this one?
No, I think it's good. And, it continues to elevate and just, I'll say, bring that next level into the game. And so, no, I like everything that's going on here.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, like you said, I think it's a way to elevate what is already there and a way to kind of change, I don't say change, a way to kind of enhance what's there from a VAR perspective. And then obviously, again, from an officiating, coaching, production perspective, kind of packaging it all together, which is super cool. So the other one we'll kind of highlight, I thought this was really interesting, is Sony debuting custom-built NFL coach headsets, which will be designed for sideline use. You will see these starting the season off here in 2025. The headsets have been tested in extreme temperatures and in the rain, and were tested using real crowd noises exceeding 100 decibels for ideal noise canceling and cancellations. The headsets will have a custom-built microphone that isolates the coach's voice and automatically mutes when the coach lifts up the mic, which you see all the time, right? Especially when they're super frustrated. Matt LaFleur was involved. The Packers head coach was involved in the testing. What do you think about this? Super cool technology here.
On the one hand, I'm like, do we really need to give coaches titanium-proof, bulletproof, top of the line equipment out here on the field that's been tested up to 100, 150 degrees, 100 decibels? Like, is it really necessary to have this type of equipment for football coaches on the sideline? Listen, if it breaks down, go back to signals. Easy. Like, what happened to just telling the wide receiver and letting them run into the game, and then tell the play? Does it take a little extra time? Sure, but then that's strategy. That's part of me when I first heard it. But then I'm like, yeah, you look through, I would say, like the last 20 years, and all the headsets have kind of been the same. I never actually wore a headset in college, so I can't tell you exactly what it sounds like, but I would say probably similar to how the same receptions you had from like a high school headset that I did wear.
You were never the defensive captain. We're saying you never had the mic.
No, I went to the phone. We had the phone. So because there's never.
I'm saying like you never got the defensive. Like you're not like listening in on the field and they're telling you what the play is and you're telling everybody else.
Yeah, listen, I'm old. We didn't have that. We were still cards, signals, everything. That's what we had.
They've had that since like 2006.
No, mics in the helmets didn't happen until like 5 years ago.
No,
something like that. Yeah, the mic in the helmet for quarterbacks happened 10 years ago. So when I was, I think, or right after college for me. But then mics for the defensive side to the middle linebacker didn't happen until 2019 maybe, or 2018, somewhere around there. So it was after my time. So we didn't have that. So when it came to communication for us, we only talked on the cell phone or got on the white phone that you had to get. Like, I think you've seen a lot of people seen videos of that. Quarterbacks picking up the phone. The Riley Reese, quarterback Reese from Notre Dame, that video where he's just getting ripped after he threw a pick. So I think it is cool that they're improving the communications for the sideline. I just kind of, it's like laughable, but that how absurd the technology is a little bit. It wasn't
approved until last year.
There you go. So it's really recent. I knew it was like within the last whatever.
I thought that had been there.
No, man, it's the recency bias out here. Still, everybody's thinking stuff has been in place for a long time. It's just brand new. Because the green dot for quarterbacks, it was sometime within the last 8, and then
quarterbacks have had, and then defensive,
and then on the defensive side, it just came through. So I do think it's pretty cool. It's just good technology. That's probably it's because on the back end of things, you see all the miscommunication that does happen. That means plays are going to get in faster, better communication. You're going to get cussed out, coach to coach on the sideline, a lot crisper. The F-bomb when it drops from Matt LaFleur down to the wide receiver coach about what the heck is, what's his name doing out on the field. It'll sting a little bit more because there's no static now. You're going to catch every syllable that's going to come out of this man's mouth. So I think that will be good just for the coaches and the teams. But is it really necessarily? Not that much.
So you don't think it's going to be that big of a difference in their communication?
No, because there's redundancies. So if your comms do go out, like next thing you know, you do go back to the archaic system of just hand signals or being able to whatever play call that might be out on the quarterback sheet, or what you might have for like quick plays that you might go down to the captain out on the defensive side, and they, your safety or your middle linebacker is going to be able to get everybody in tune from there, and then you're going to be back up by the next series for the most part, or you're going to have a game plan. So I think it goes into, I honestly like the nuance that is sports, and not everything's supposed to be perfect, and it'll be fine, but having the updated technology for that will be cool. I just find it funny, like, 100 decibels and heat and all this, and it can take bullets from an AK-47 and ricochet like it hit Superman's body. This is the headset and the headgear that NFL coaches are wearing. Look at what the NFL's doing. Like, that part's just absurd, but all in all, it is needed.
I don't know what that voice was.
This is me, man. Look at what we get. We're so uppity over here. That's
I know a lot of
that's
people
how-
are trying to do their South Park voices today, but I don't think that was it.
Hey, South Park came with some heater out here, with some heat, baby. After they got that 1.5 Billy check.
You got to make sure it cashes before you go that route there. But
it's a lot of stuff you can talk when you get that money, and you can't tell them anything at that point. Can't say we're a small show because we just got 1.5 billion. So
that is true. That is true. We'll hit the big discussion here. Private equity, which I think it's layered, right? In terms of how most people feel about private equity, right? I think, if you're in private equity, there's a guy that does like these videos, and I'll find him. I forget the guy's name right now, but he does these like private equity. He makes fun of private equity people essentially in these videos. So, I think if you're in private equity, obviously you're making money, you're doing your thing. Amazing. For those of us outside of it, a lot of us feel like private equity is a kind of a scourge on a lot of American institutions and capitalism in a way. The tough thing is it's here for, we're going to focus on college sports, right? Today. It is here in college sports now with the new rulings, meaning that private equity very soon will in some way finance your school, your team. I'm thinking about this we're going to stay revenue sports. So let's really just talk kind of football, basketball, and what the implications mean here. It seems like they're going to really be doing this on like a private kind of agreement, right? They're going to be essentially either helping to fund debt or just to kind of sign over X amount of money. And it's going to be, they're going to get a percentage back on whatever the school kind of utilizes it for, right? Where do you see some of the pitfalls? Where do you see some of the maybe advantages for a school like a UConn that is, I don't want to say struggling, but obviously in this new landscape without a conference, with NIL, how can a school like UConn benefit from private equity?
I mean, there's a lot of benefits to having to amass that type of cash flow into and inject that into the school. Now you have to figure out what way it would flow into your more non-revenue driving sports, because you have to do that. Whether say that's from a Title IX perspective and then just really overall and looking when you look at the books and what you have to do.
Let me stop you. I actually disagree. I think if it is a private deal. And it's a deal, let's say, because they're not taking any equity right now. I don't. There's
now.
I don't. Now, if they take equity in the school,
listen,
that's
crack dealer give you a sample, but then gonna come back and hit you after the fact. Like it ain't nothing's free out here, Sterling.
No. I totally hear you, and that's why I say I think it's going to be a private credit deal, because what I think they will do is like they will say, "Here's 10 mil. We want this deal over 5 years. You can use it for X, Y, and Z, and all off of X, Y, and Z, we want, we're hoping whatever the revenue percentage back to us is, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, if you added premium seating, if you added, like if you're talking UConn, right, at the rent, if you added premium seating, if you added buses to get kids into the school, like I'm sure then it's like, okay, well, what's the percentage back on that they would get from a ticket sales on students or people or whatever, right? From a bus perspective,
right.
Things like that, I think is how right now it is going to go. To your point, from an equity perspective, I think only the school. I don't think a team can give out an equity. That just doesn't make any sense, right? It's
right.
Like a school maybe could, maybe.
Yeah, and so I use the example as of a crack dealer because I think this is a strong drug that once they get their hooks in, and like you said, it's to start off with, they're not going to take any equity. We're going to have this partnership being amicable between the both of us, and it'll be mutually beneficial on the front end, whether if we're helping, like you said, I think like Penn State currently is structured from a ticket, and I think from in another structural layer, but the ultimate goal at the end of the day is I want to sink my teeth sink my hooks in to some type of equity within your major revenue driving, however we're going to align that. And so what I think ultimately, I don't like the way that this is going from a private perspective, from a private outlook and private outlook, because on one hand, the benefits and I would say the parity that you're starting to see in college football due to NIL, for better or worse, is the disparity is going to grow to a certain level, because let's say from the group that we're talking about here with Elevate, they align themselves with Penn State. That was in the, what was disclosed. There's 2 other big Power 5 or Power 4 schools that they didn't disclose. Why would I need to align with a Toledo of the world when we know that that's a 5-year roadmap to be able to get any type of return from a structure on tickets through the gate fund? So that could be our first and fastest fast track to get into the administration to say, let's build out an equity for what play here to now we can get equity in the school. So that's one way that they can get in there. But also, why do I want to align with the Toledo when I know that we're not going to get a return? So to that disparity that you're going to see in talent and for the resources that you're going to have for these bigger colleges, I think you're going to now see a space that's going to continue to keep grow and grow and grow. And you're going to have this huge chasm that's going to now have form within, I think, college sports. So if you're going to bring in a PE, and I said this, I think 2 years ago, the only right way to do it is from the totality of college sports. And people might not like this, but they're the only ones that have money. And the NBA allows only, I think, 5% for them to have any type of equity in the league. And that is from the Saudi fund and how they're buying up everything. You have, LIV, blah, 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 blah. But if you brought in a fund, and I'd be fine if there were multiple PEs that joined up as one conglomerate, and we're bringing in $2 billion. We're going to handle all the TV rights, but off of this money is going to go in, or $5 billion, whatever, and go in and trickle out to the 100 Division I schools. So you can now go back geographically, because it doesn't matter where you're at, because the money split, maybe depending on where you finish top 20, you might have a bigger hit than others. And that is just due to your sweat equity that you put in, that you get rewarded back on a kicker, which is completely fair. That's the only way I think that you can bring in PE to college sports and have that dispersed in a way that doesn't bastardize the game itself, because that's the way that we're headed. And so I don't like it personally from a private outlook into specific schools, because now I'm cherry picking. I know where we're going to cherry pick. We're going to cherry pick in the Big Ten, cherry pick in the SEC, and then once we start there, other schools are going to come to us, the Toledos. How can we get involved with this? Oh, well, the only way, because you only filled 13% of your stadium, and by the numbers, you've done that year over year for the past 4 years. So for only way for us to make this an amicable or a deal that works both ways is for us to get a little bit extra kicker in this way to perform, like you said, XYZ. So I don't like the way that this is headed, because you see where the writing on the wall is, and then the equity from a school. And I don't know how you would do that from a state school. Private schools, most likely, easier, because it's just going through the board. But you're gonna see some crazy things happen that I think will ruin college sports. And I think college sports already is on the rocks right now. Stuff is on the fritz because of get your money out here. I love that, but from how NIL is right now and how hard it is to allow for coaches to build a base for a program, and people don't know who these 1-year players are that coming in. You don't really love the school. You don't love Ohio State versus Michigan for the rivalry. You love it because I'm playing in it. I don't love Duke UNC because I grew up with the rivalry and saw it. I might say that as a talking point as I just transferred in for a year, but it allows, you don't see schools and fans growing up with the players now and having those traditional 4-5 year players. So it's rough, and it'll only get rougher because there's no regulation outside of them taking stuff to Congress to, put limits on players' pockets right now, which is crazy. So yeah, I'm concerned.
That was good.
You've been choking over here.
I did. I thought I was about to die.
I could see that. You hit that mute and you just took off. Body said, I can't hold this cough in any longer.
Good. I mean, I kind of agree with you a little bit. I think though back to your Akron thing there was like, it's the same. It's nothing's changing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like Akron before. Hold on. I got to cough again.
You're going to say what Akron before NIL, you know, you were hoping LeBron was going to come around and drop a quick bag or do a promo video. To get some
Akron
hype.
before NIL is the same. You know what I mean? So I feel like we're only talking about the big hitters in sports. To your point, will this proliferate to non-revenue driving sports? Maybe. Take an Ole Miss baseball, right? Infrastructure's there. They're really good in the SEC. Always have MLB caliber type talent. Would a PE firm want to come in and say, hey, like, we'll give you X amount of money, maybe expand the assortment of concessions, expand the stadium seating, do X, Y, and Z. Now it's more money to even get better players than you've even had before, right? That's probably, to your point, you talked about a short-term, something that's like that. That's a smart short-term deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to like, I just think like there's gonna be a talent discrepancy. There's already one within revenue sports. PE coming in, I don't know if it changes it, right?
Do you think it helps?
I think it's just a different way to put money into programs that already get money.
But do you think it will help that talent disparity amongst the landscape? So
I thought NIL would. Yeah, crazy. You said it at the end there. Crazy that Trump signed is an executive order today trying to limit NIL.
Right.
Which is,
people love capitalism, but they don't love capitalism when it's for a subset of folks that they don't think deserve it. In that sense,
that's one way to put that. I think that's one way to say that. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that that's happening, but yeah, I mean, I think I thought what NIL would do. BYU is a great example.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the church, who I think people are realizing has so much money. A guy like Ryan Smith, who owns the Jazz and like just got the hockey team to go there, is also pouring money into BYU. Mm-hmm. That's where I felt like, okay, yeah, like take a school like that historically has not been great. You get some big time donors. You get, again, a mega church behind it, mega religion behind it. Now all of a sudden you're getting the best basketball player in the nation, which typically would go to Kansas or UNC or Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
To your point, is a private equity firm going to come in and say, "Oh, we can do the same thing in an Akron"? Absolutely not.
Right.
You see what I mean? So I don't think anything.
They could do that same thing at an Akron, but at what cost to the school? So I don't think any public university would be able to align in the way that they would, the way that private equity firms would want to. So
what's the downfall for the school?
There's no downfall for the school. It'd be the downfall for the firm, because at the end of the day, we need to see what the return's going to be, and you're not going to get. They're not going to. Right, but the only way that they would do that is if, with no more nefarious reasons of an agreement of, let's get equity out of XYZ somehow from either the athletic department, so I don't know, somehow from the school getting equity. So that's from the PE firm. That's their end goal. So for the schools, no, it's going to help the school regardless, because now you're just getting injected with cash that you didn't have before. And then now it's going to even the playing field for you. But down the line, I'm looking 5, 10, 15 years, whatever. I mean, obviously from return, for the investors and returning, let's look on a 3 to 5. It's always going to work out for the benefit for the firms that are going to invest, because they are going to recoup that money plus whatever they were looking to, get off in dividends. So from however they're aligning. So I think on the front end, it does work for the Akrons or the Toledos, because you now have more money to work for your NIL that you weren't getting locally. but then at what cost is that for however you have it structured? That's what I'm seeing. So that's why I think it's going to be negative ultimately. And at the immediate, you're only going to find, because they're structuring right now through, hey, how can we enhance, or, all right, so you have 95% capacity. If we hit 99%, by aligning with you guys, now we're going to take a back end return of 2% or something like that from the gate fund, and then also from the merchandise that we then amplified within your program, because now you were only selling t-shirts, but now with what we were able to add in, we're doing sweatpants, leggings for, and for women, and bolstering your women's line, because it was minimal to start. So, but it's easy with those schools because the schools are already established. So what can you do with schools that aren't as established? I think there's more benefit on the back end for these firms, which I think will ultimately be bad, but that's just me. So that's why I don't
maybe, but you're going to have boots on the ground, which kind of what Elevate does, right? Or has already, because they've been in ticketing and things like that at these universities. But you'd have to like truly work hand in hand with the university, which I don't disagree with, right? Like take a Montana, which has the ecosystem build, has a good football team. You put money into Montana and expand on some of the services and things like that, get a few big time athletes, like that return, to your point, that return over 3 to 5 years is different than a return for South Carolina football, probably, right?
Yeah, you would see a net 200%, something like that you probably get back. I would assume, especially if you're like, hey, with like a successful program like that, we can, if we see over the next 2 years that we hit these figures, 4 or 3, whatever you'd have to prove to the board, since it's a state school, for a quick renovation that's going to then put you into Division I, so solidly put you in Division I and on the road, let's say roadmap for the Pac-12. Now that 3 to 5 short term, better return for Montana, but at the ultimate, like let's say 10-year down the line, PE firm's going to tap out because they're going to get that back in and whatever that expansion is going to be. Like that's where you can see a line in, and I don't know. I don't like it personally. I do think if it was more of an honest effort into helping the schools and the student athletes, then I would kind of be more on board with it. But all this is going to align your Cohens of the world and buy them another, $3 million yacht. So, or that's speedboat. The yachts are 500 million, whatever. You know what I'm saying. So that's what I don't like. But am I a pessimist? Is that
no? I think everyone's a little nervous that private equity is getting into. Like I said, we're going to keep the conversation to college sports today. But yeah, I mean, I think when you think about what that means, it just is. It's an interesting. What the fuck? It's an interesting, like, hold on. Yeah, it's an interesting, like, way to approach something that we've all fell in love with without the money. Mm-hmm. Now you're adding in institutional money, and you know that with that comes control, comes like just a myriad of things that don't really align to like what a Saturday is, Saturday is like you get there early, you're tailgating, you're talking about all the old days of being at the school, and then you go watch a game against a rival, and then you go party afterwards at a bar where old friends are, and then you leave. It's this community aspect of like what college sports has been. You add in private equity money, and that that's going to change in some ways, right? Because to your point, because they need and want to return. That's how they work, right?
Yeah. Next thing you know, you go to a Penn State game. You're at the stadium, and the PA announcer is welcome to State College, sponsored by Netflix, hosted at Joe Paterno Field, which is also brought to you by a Cigna, and then everything is going to be advertising because you have to align with other. That's how you have to do this to make it work. So I think it's just a slippery slope, and I think a bad direction. Only unless, like I said, everybody comes together. You have one gigantic fund that everybody pulls from. So that would be if the NCAA ultimately was a gigantic private equity firm that had the money to then give out to and handle all, and they're supposed to handle the TV deals and then break it out the way it's supposed to, but that went to every individual conference and how they do their deals with ESPN and whatever streaming service. But if they were the ones to do that, that's how college sports should have been aligned, and we wouldn't have had these issues now. But then everybody's like, how are we going to get my cut? And it would have been easy to solve it. Like, hey, yes, you're going to be in the SEC. SEC, this is the allotment that's broken out from you guys because we ran the numbers, blah, blah, blah. It was so easy, but you had Mark Emmert at the time taking a $40 million salary from a nonprofit, just trying to continue to line their pockets instead of actually trying to have foresight in saving college sports. And now you have USC playing Minnesota for baseball on a 3-game trip from West Coast to West Coast to the middle Midwest, and you feel for these kids. So it's college sports is in a bad time, bad place.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, and we'll see what happens as PE kind of comes in. We'll keep tracking it, and what happens here. I got one question for you, so we round out here.
Yeah, hit me with it. I'll give you a short answer.
We'll see. You've been a little long-winded.
Listen, when I talk to a baby all day. Now is the first time I'm talking to a grown adult, so I got to get these words off. He's been goo gaggy and babbing all in your face. I can't talk back to that. I try to, and then he just yells back over me, and he just winning arguments. And now at least I can talk to somebody and have words that I can go back and forth with.
We're glad that the Seed Talk podcast could be that for you.
It's a good outlet. Thank you.
NBA Launchpad at Summer League. Did you get a chance to look at these startups?
I did get a chance.
We recorded earlier with Neve Clark. Shout out to her. Coming back on and talking through MLC Connect. She gave her vote. Who is your vote?
That will be coming up right after this.
That as they say in the business is how you do a teaser there.
Yeah. I know how to do a teaser. You don't know how to do no teaser.
Who is your vote? Who would get your vote? Do you want me to run through them, or did you already look at?
Yeah, no. Run through them real quick.
Oh, you need me to run through them. Okay, got it. Yeah. All right. I did the same thing with Neve. I'll do this now. NBA Launchpad. Like I said earlier, I was at Summer League, so they had 5 companies there. I'm going to read the 5 companies, and then I'll let Taylor decide who his number 1 is. Somni, first one, has developed a therapeutic headband that helps users get to sleep faster and enjoy sleep longer. Really cool idea and a company there out of Berkeley, California. The next is Seattle-based OneCourt. I've actually highlighted this a couple times on my socials at SteamAc, Twitter, Threads, but gives blind or low vision fans real-time play-by-play access to an NBA game through the touch of their fingers on a heptac device that's given to them at the games. Through more than a dozen cameras at an NBA game, help to track the basketball and the action for the OneCourt device and its users.
Yeah, those users must have. I would have loved to have seen their reaction when Ben Simmons didn't dunk the ball in that playoff game.
I don't think they had it then.
I know. If this was then, what the hell? What? I can't even see it. I know that was bad.
Trashy is a company that motivates fans than anyone else who has too much stuff to buy. Take back bags for $20 each and recycle their clothing and textile materials in exchange for rewards. Trashy is rolling out a $68 per year membership. The NBA can score big by having its teams recycle through Trashy there. Next one, VR Reps, which is a company using 3D teaching platform, showing how kids can learn basketball IQ and decision-making skills through the technology in its company's programs. Lastly, Sport IQ, which has a smart valve, which goes into the official NBA and WNBA basketballs that can detect who last touched the ball before it goes out of bounds, and can shorten NBA games through the awful and dreaded replay reviews. Taylor,
Yeah.
what would have gotten your vote if you had been at NBA Summer League?
Well, I can tell you what wouldn't have gotten my vote. No disrespect, but Somni just take some melatonin. I don't need no headband. Now it's like, no, that ain't. Just I don't get it. Just
sometimes that doesn't work for people.
Yeah, and then up the milligram dosage.
Then you're in Requiem for a Dream.
Yeah, that's called an awesome night. So, yeah, headband wouldn't do it for me. I am gonna go with VReps and the 3D teaching platform, because if you haven't heard some older pods, go back to anything NBA related, especially for the youth. I have a huge gripe right now with how a lot of these kids are coming up, not understanding the game. And then also we've talked about what the NBA is going to do and what the NBA needs for the layman, for the common fan, as the big names transition out with LeBron, Steph, KD. Like when that happens, what's going to happen? Because you had the big draw of these names for people to watch, but if people really understood the delicate balance, the song and dance that's out there on the court, all the motions, the flow, if you did it just, for fun or whatever, but as these kids are growing up and really understanding that it's more complicated than just pass and cut and running left and right, that what, Steph Curry and that offense is really doing in that motion and flow is a lot. There's a lot more nuance to it, a lot more intricacy than just running left and right and Steph running people ragged. I think that is really what's going to be cool and what's needed for the future growth. So I'm going with VReps.
Shout out to them. Shout out to their CEO, Sean Cooper. Yeah, I like that. I like the pick. I think it's a cool idea. For me, it's one court.
I was going to say, it didn't sound like you liked the pick. Didn't sound like it.
No, I do. I think it's a great idea of, like, to your point, teaching kids how to learn the IQ of basketball, which does not happen.
Sounded really patronizing, as if is that how you talk to the GF over there when she's like, oh, I think we should go here for dinner. And you're like, oh, that was really good. Yeah, I think that place is really awesome. Yeah, that's a great choice, great selection. But we could go here. That's what you just gave me. That was the energy you just gave me. And if Vic was there, she could hear me. That was the exact energy. It was, yeah, that was good. Good job, but that
was not the energy.
Mm-hmm.
It was a good pick. What else do you want me to say there?
I don't know. You didn't have to lie to me. Could have just said not a great pick.
It's five great companies.
I'm a big boy. I'm a grown man. I can handle it. You won't hurt me. You won't hurt my feelings.
Okay. Well, my pick, as you'll also learn later in the podcast as well, is one court. I just think anytime you're able to bring in, sports has been for people that are, disabled. It's from playing sports and from being able to watch it. I feel like that sector of people have always been kind of outside, and what sports has given me, the fandom of it, the joy of it, for people now to be able to enjoy that themselves, I think it's a really cool thing. And so for me, it's one court and what they're able to give access to for blind and low vision fans. So
I like it.
But no, you can't go wrong with any of them. Honestly, the NBA Launchpad did a great job of, like, curating this group of startups. We'll stick around for the rest of the pod with Neve Clark. Excited to bring back Neve Clark. Neve, thanks for making a little time today and jumping on for a little part of the pod. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you? It's great. I'm out in Miami. It's still sunny and warm here. I'm enjoying my summer.
It's always good. You cannot go wrong with a summer in Miami. Any boat days so far this summer?
Honestly, no, because it is actually too hot to go outside. Like between 12 and 3, you actually want to stay indoors. But like nighttime little walks, night running, just anything at night, dinners outside, that's perfect.
That is nice. That's like the best time in summer, right? We're able to just like be outside until it's like 10 o'clock, and that's peak summertime. Well, we appreciate you, like I said, hopping on. We're excited because you were able to go to MLC Connect. Shout out to our guy Nate Thompson for setting that up. Walk us through kind of what you saw, what the flow was, and everything that was MLC Connect.
Yeah, so it was an amazing conference. I was super excited to be able to go, and obviously shout out to Nate for having us. But there was a lot. I had a lot of good speakers there, lots of good chat, a lot of different stuff on both the tech side of sports and then also just the athlete investing, venture space, what's going on. My main takeaways for the tech side is AI isn't going anywhere. Tech is just, it continues to be really a big part of our lives and what we're moving forward, which is awesome. There was a lot of companies talking about like AI this, AI coaching, AI just like resources for kids too. With a basketball hoop, there was a company called Grind. Thomas Fields ran that company. It's a basketball hoop, portable basketball hoop, actually super cool and resourceful for youth athletes training. So on the tech side, constantly growing. And what we're seeing is actually Noah as well from Athletes and Assets. Great person. He was a cool person to meet. He talked about the 3 things to come and watch for the next coming year. And so I'm sure you'll agree with this. It is women's sports with obviously everything from Unrivaled, the WNBA expansion, and now heading into kind of more on the League One volleyball. I think that's where we're going to see the next things coming, women's sports. Obviously, tech and AI, it's not going anywhere. It's only going to get stronger. More people are going to throw money at it. And then also youth sports. Youth sports has turned into a mega beast of people just investing and wanting to get involved and give youth athletes as much resources, facilities, and venues as much as possible. So it was great.
Yeah, I think those 3 actually, I was, even though I was sick this past weekend, I jumped into a little studio and just did some recording. And like, one of the questions was, what are the 3 pillars that I feel like are coming from a sports technology perspective? And I mean, I feel like you just hit what if you follow Seed Talk Podcast on socials, what you'll see from a video coming soon is, I mean, youth sports, women's sports. I like to say fan engagement, to your point, like how AI is going to help kind of reach the Gen Alpha, the Gen Zs, right, from that perspective, because I think everybody, like, leagues aren't worried about people like myself who've been ingrained to watch sports, right? You're worried about the people that have not had that. And so how can technology transform some of the things that they're doing? So, really cool to kind of see that. What was, did anything kind of stick out in terms of like how many, to your point, obviously investments and partnerships are such a big thing right now. Anything on the financial side kind of stick out to you at the conference?
Yeah, so this one's really exciting. We are now seeing a big rise in athletes investing in companies and getting on the cap table, and then also starting their own businesses. So something that became really apparent throughout the conversation was athletes want to build long-term equity. They want to have something outside of sport because it's not exactly sustainable these days. And so a lot more athletes are getting involved with VC firms. Family offices are huge right now. Athletes want good people that they can help invest and understand on the cap table. And what came with that too is a lot of these athletes also only want to invest in what they're passionate about, which makes sense. So anyone right now trying to tell them to do this, that, and the other, no. You want to actually listen to what they're saying. What do they like? If they like animals, maybe they invest in a pet company or something like that. If they like food, we see a lot of these guys investing in food companies, in this, that, and the other. And so that was really cool. And something someone else mentioned that stuck with me from that is a lot of these athletes have trust issues, which is kind of expected given the circumstances they have to deal with. But when it comes to that, they also need to be in a family office or with people who are going to trust them. And so making sure when you're getting in and helping these athletes invest, make sure it's all pure. Make it sure you're helping them for their own future.
Yeah, I mean, something that I thought about at league, at summer, I always want, I don't want to say league pass, but at summer league, was that exactly talking to people that I knew that had made it a little bit further than me, which is always really cool. But that was the thing, like, how do you make these rooms a little bit easier to navigate? How do you make it, to your point, to where you feel like it's not just people, bouncing to these parties, trying to like get at athletes in a way to kind of utilize them for their own kind of like portfolio, right? Like, how do you make it super comfortable for athletes to be able to interact and be like, hey, this is what I'm, to your point, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. How can I use what I've done, some of the money that I've earned, to be able to kind of go after some of these things? So yeah, it's definitely been on my mind. It's great that you kind of saw the same thing, or that's a big, I think it's a big push right now, right? More athletes want to get involved in some of these things. And obviously like the Durants and the Steph Currys, the Mahomes, like, they're always going to get the opportunities, right? But what about, someone that had a 10-year career that wants to kind of further themselves in business? I think that's kind of the next evolution to kind of helping the next wave of athletes.
Exactly. And it's talking as well, like the university college athletes now who are getting NIL money and learning that you can invest that into a company. You can, for example, there was Spindrift and Patriot Code just did a partnership with a bunch of athletes. The root of that as well is those athletes wanted to invest with that brand because they believe in the values. If you get university students who are on these NIL deals now to invest in something, that's long-term financial kind of stability in most cases. And that's great. That's where the future should be leading. You are an athlete, but you can be more.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, to your point, with NIL money, right, the money is a little bit different at a younger age for some of these athletes, which is awesome. But then it's like, how do you go deploy it? How do you utilize it? What do you do to kind of further what you're doing? So that's really cool. Really, any other big takes coming out of MLC Connect?
Mainly, I mean, this is just for everyone involved. Go network, go meet people. I met some awesome people. It was a nice and tight group, so everyone there knew my name by the end of the conference, and I knew everyone else's names. And so that always at a conference, I'm sure, hopefully our listeners know, so like, go meet as many people as possible and go introduce yourself, because everyone's connected in this industry.
I totally agree. It's just great to be in the rooms. You can do so many Zoom calls or emails and all the things, right? But getting in front of people, being in front of people, it's a huge thing. Something we miss a lot too when you're doing virtual work or, whatever you're kind of doing there. So yeah, glad you're able to be in the room and glad that people were able to kind of meet you. So yeah, shout out to Nate. Seems like it was a success, and hopefully we'll be there next year as well.
That would be great. I hope there's another one next year, maybe in Miami again.
Yeah, I know, right? It's never, like I said, never bad to be in Miami.
No.
There's been some interesting, you talked about women's sports and the branding and things like that. I wanted to hit the LOVB, Love Volleyball, and Skims partnership. And Skims also has the NBA and the WNBA. This one was, I feel like, for me, kind of came out of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the partnership and some of the branding that they're doing. What did you think with this one in terms of like Skims being involved here? And to your point, do you see this? Do you see like more brands trying to get involved with some of the emerging leagues, especially around women's sports?
So I definitely think it definitely threw me off a bit. I remember like go scrolling on my phone. I was like, oh, like this is interesting, because you're right. Skims is such an amazing brand, but it's very well known and they have their great culture and brand values. And to go into, in my opinion, League One volleyball is not where they probably wanted to be yet. I think they're competing with the WNBA, Unrivaled, some big female leagues, and they have the ability to kind of be the next thing, and that's what they're pushing for. So I think that's where that brand partnership came from. You have Skims already leading the industry, everyone knows Skims, and now you're bringing it in as a partnership. They're betting, Skims, and obviously League One Volleyball is betting that this is their season, this is their year. I've actually talked to a few people over at LOVB, and they're trying to kind of rebuild the schedule so it also doesn't fall. Their games don't fall on college days, or because a lot of the teams play out of big college town areas, like I think Texas has a team, I'm pretty sure. Mm-hmm. And so turning away from like the big days when college teams are playing or pro sports to get more people out, to get the fans engaged. So I love this partnership because I think it's them saying, we're going to be the big one this year. We're going to compete now with Unrivaled and the WNBA and the other rising leagues. So I'm hoping this is all good and positive. And I think with more brands getting involved with women's sports, that's all great. We're seeing a huge rise in women's sports. Everyone's turning in. Everyone wants to see Caitlin Clark and what she's doing. And it's really exciting. And I think there's going to be a lot of forward pushing momentum from these leagues this year. And so hopefully all of them will do really well. And obviously I know the WNBA has also just expanded, I think 3 more cities, and they got the tempo. Shout out to my Canadians.
Yeah, yeah, right. Toronto, shout out.
I know. I'm excited for that. Toronto needs a team. Like, that's perfect.
Yeah, no, they do. It was honestly surprising that they didn't have it. I think Serena Williams is part of the like the ownership group. Yeah, I agree. Brands like this that are already established, wanting to work with like an emerging league, I think is huge. I think volleyball, for me, I even think volleyball has a chance to be either on par, like to your point, obviously, the Caitlin Clark effect definitely like kind of changes the math around women's basketball a little bit. But I've always felt like college women's volleyball is massive, right? Especially like Midwest. And I felt like that could transform into a league. Obviously now there's League One volleyball, there's Major League Volleyball. And so yeah, I mean, it's to your point, it feels like Skims looking at that and looking at the long-term possibilities of like women's sports, and especially a sport like volleyball, getting involved now is super smart, and kind of helping transform like how you kind of look at the entity too. You know what I mean? When you see bigger brands attached to something, you're like, oh wait, like you trust them more, you take them more seriously, as opposed to when they're kind of isolated sitting out there. So I think it's a really cool thing.
Exactly. And League One volleyball too. Like I remember growing up like in high school and watching like Logan Eggleston. I know she's on the teams, like Madison Skinner, like these players, like lots of girls and like lots of women and boys play volleyball in the US. It's one of the biggest sports here. So it has the ability to be the basketball, we have the ability to have a Caitlin Clark in this league. It just needs that next step. And I think it is through brands, right? You're right. Skims associated with that. Who's next? That's the cool part. And then whoever's next will just keep pushing it to the top. And like they've already mentioned, they're going to have brand campaigns, events, the players will get behind it. And so the more you see like these brands associated, you're going to have more people going, oh, I'll watch this. Or people who've like grown up with these players as role models. Okay, this could be me.
Yeah, no, totally agree. When you see like someone on a campaign, you're like, wait, who is that? Right. Or why would this league be associated with it? Now you're more apt to like Google or be like, to your point, like, who is this? Where do they play? Do they obviously like Penn State and Nebraska are like huge like volleyball schools, right? And then now you're like, oh, I might go watch a game now, or I might go watch a college game, and then it all kind of like starts to snowball in like a really good way in terms of like your thought process around the sport and getting involved in watching it. So yeah, really cool thing there that popped up, to your point, popped up on both our radars. We were like, what just happened here? So
kudos to Skims, because they kill it every time. I don't know, they just get in front of everything. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously Kim K behind that, they're amazing at branding and marketing. So anytime they do something to you, you're like, oh, you kind of take notice, because obviously there's probably a long term or runway to what they're trying to kind of build towards, so which is cool.
Yeah.
I know you're big in kind of the running space and obviously being active there. Obviously the space around wearables, trackable wearables are as well. What have you seen from that perspective around health in sports tech?
Yeah, so we're seeing this shift. So we've gone from Apple, Aura, Whoop, to now elite companies and young founders trying to raise and then also build companies that now have wearables embedded in your clothing. Right now as well, most of these companies, so I've actually talked to the founder of Move True, Naomi, she's amazing. They're out in Ireland, and then Theo Health in Scotland, also both international companies, which is awesome, looking to come to the US. They are both integrating technology into leggings, into kind of wearable clothes for athletes, targeting for elite athletes, because, start at the top and then make your way down. And it's going to help recovery, kind of your post-game play, everything that happened post-game and then before, to prevent injuries. So it's a new space for wearables. I think it's fascinating because, in my opinion, if I were to run like, a football team, I would want my players wearing clothes instead of like an Apple Watch or a Whoop. I think there's something smarter about that being implemented into just your lifestyle. You get up, you put on your wearable pants, and that's getting all of your data, all of your movements constantly. And then that's the data you use. So that's the idea of both these companies, different in similar ways, or different multiple ways and similar in the same, but small little microchips that go into clothings, gets your movements, gets your where your legs turning to prevent also like ACL injuries and Achilles, understanding your movement, knowing how to like change those biomechanics to make you faster or stronger. And so I think it's awesome. I think this is great. This is where we're heading. These two companies, I'm sure, will do amazing. They're just heading into a space where we move away from, clunky jewelry to something that's just integrated into your everyday life. So I think it's super cool.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, and we just got talking women's sports there, and the fact that obviously, I can't think catapult. Right there, it is.
Yeah.
Right, they have like the kind of like looks like a sports bra essentially, right? That women or men can wear that
Yeah.
kind of tracks. But now, to your point, having something like leggings that like people wear all the time, everywhere, right? To be able to now have something that tracks you from when you wake up to when you go back to sleep, I think is into your point where it's not like an Oura ring or it's not a watch. It's truly just in your clothes, right? You're not even like thinking about it, which is super cool there. So, and then to your point, and then, also from a leg, we talked about this on the pod last week, but how do you measure some of these leg injuries? How do you measure what your legs are kind of going through? And obviously, leggings again on either side of the aisle there, like that's what you wear underneath your shorts, right? That's what you're going to be wearing when you're playing the game. And so I think having again the technology that's like tracking that and really kind of understanding what your body is going through from even the training aspect to warm-ups to everything, I think is it's going to be a huge advantage for these teams. I think I saw a golfers, Xander Schauffele was a part of one of these, which is super cool. And again, golfers, same thing. Like they've never had things really tailored to them from a clothing perspective, or that's on their clothing, I should say. So really cool initiatives here in this space, and obviously just cool integrations too. To your point, like we've gone from the auras and the whoops and things like that you put on to now something you don't even really think about.
Yeah, and my thought is like when this becomes like accessible to like the leagues and it's it's not crazy expensive, but they can all have them. There's nothing stopping an athlete from like if it's your everyday leggings and you have 5 pairs and you put them under whatever, it's rinse and repeat. You're not going to think, okay, I need to go grab like my Aura or I need to charge my Apple Watch or my Garmin. It's just going to be something that's integrated into your daily lifestyle, which is great. You're never going to miss data. The data analysts are going to be having like a great day because they're not going to be running around getting athletes to put on some type of piece of tracking data and technology. And then as soon as well it hits the masses, that's going to be great. Everyone I know has an Aura, everyone has a Whoop, and then it's preventative as well. Most of these companies are saying, and most of the founders as well, that was the thing. Naomi from Move True, she had an undiagnosed ACL tear for 4 years. She was a ballerina. And she said there's no technology to tell you that that's happening in your body. And so having something more precise, as you said, on the leg directly, then hopefully we'll be able to kind of move to that health side too and prevent the millions of injuries happening to athletes every year.
Yeah, the preventive side is huge. And I think that's what everyone's trying to figure out is like, how do you prevent? You're paying so much money to these athletes now. How do you prevent some of these long-term injuries and keep them on the field as long as you can? So yeah, again, super cool that they've started this year.
Exactly. I love it. And they're both international companies, which is great because we're going to have, I think international markets is awesome. You come to the US, you'll have them in obviously the UK and wherever, and the more athletes we can help, the better.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah. And I feel like that's a huge thing. Like there feels like so many European companies are kind of spinning up, and obviously then it's like taking what they're learning there. They've been doing sports tech for a little bit as well, right? And then bringing what their expertise is into America, where we may be either behind or still kind of figuring out exactly kind of how we want to do some of the things. So
exactly.
I've got a vote for you here. So again, like I said, I was at Summer League. NBA Launchpad has their kind of initiative there where they have 5 startups in a room, kind of like pitching and talking about what they're doing, how it's impacting the league. So I don't want to read all of these here, but I'll give you the 3 companies. I guess I do have to read them. All right. So Somni, which helps NBA staffers, company workers, and fans in its diagnostic and therapeutic headband, and helps users to get to sleep faster, enjoy longer sleeps, and feel better. I think after kind of using this, the Seattle-based One Court, I've highlighted this a couple times on social, gives blind or low vision fans real-time play-by-play access to an NBA game through the touch of their fingers on a haptic device. which is really cool. It tracks it from all the cameras inside the stadium. I think a baseball team is also trying. I think it's the Athletics who are trying to also implement this as well. So really, really cool product there. The third one they had is Trashy, which is the company that motivates fans and anyone else who has too much stuff to buy. So you can have a take back bag for $20 each and recycle their clothing and textile materials in exchange for rewards. They're rolling out a $68 per year membership, and the NBA can score, and you can, if you're a fan, can score big recycling through Trashy. Last two, VR Reps, which is a 3D teaching platform showing how kids can learn basketball IQ and decision-making skills through the technology in the company's program. The last one is Sport IQ, which has a smart valve that officially embeds into NBA and WNBA basketballs that can detect who last touched the ball before it goes out of bounds. So sorry for the listeners, try to run through that there really, really quickly. Neve, what are your thoughts there, and who would get your vote if you were at NBA Summer League?
Okay, currently I have two favorites.
Okay.
One would be Somni, just because maybe it's just because I have sleeping problems. So if that could be solved with like therapeutic headband, that would be wonderful, like amazing. And also that just feels smart, given like, some games can end at like 12 midnight or sometimes later, depending on the sport. I feel like that is smart for anyone who like works there. You go home, you put the headband on, you're knocked out. But obviously, secondly, I do love the Seattle-based One Court because obviously the more people we can get involved in understanding sports and being able to have access to it, that's always the goal, because I love sports. I know you love sports, and it really just bring community together. So those are my two favorites. Sleep, personal one. Actually, both are personal, but I would love a sleep headband.
Yeah, we'll see if they can sponsor, hit us up with a couple and see if we can test it out here. All right, so what out of those two, you've narrowed it down to two. Which one would you pick there?
I'm gonna have to go with the Seattle-based One Court. I can lose my sleep, but I think obviously having sports become more accessible to all is the end goal.
Yeah, that's not a bad pick there. We'll combine this with what Taylor does on the other side of the podcast, and we'll have the results for you on social. So,
what would you pick here from this list?
Yeah, no, it's funny. They're all great companies. I think for me, I'm with you. I know One Court's been out there, but I think the technology, to your point, to like allow, I think sports has always been very much for kind of able-bodied people, if that makes any sense, from playing and from kind of watching and everything. And to your point, I think anytime you're able to make it more inclusive and give people, I think sports is so cool because you find so many things out about yourself. It's like a way to kind of get your mind off of like, real world, whatever's going on in your world. Right. And to be able to give that joy to people that haven't had it before, I think is super cool. So for me, it's One Court. But yeah, to your point, I'm actually the same way. It's funny you said that. I also can't sleep. So Somni, hit us up. It's a super cool idea. Actually, the sport IQ is too. Like the reviews in games are so long, it's so annoying. And so if that is able to take off some time in an NBA game, I think they would be my number two, if I'm honest. But yeah, but some really cool companies in here.
Definitely really cool. I love where they're going with this.
Yeah. So shout out to NBA Launchpad. I've talked to those guys a few times. What they're doing there, trying to impact the league at a high level, kind of streamline technology into the league. And yeah, can't wait to kind of see who they have at next year's Summer League.
That would be great.
Neve, thanks for popping on for a second on a Thursday afternoon. Any big plans for the weekend?
Probably catching up on sleep. Like I said, I feel like I'm missing sleep, and I think some of my friends are coming to town, so just going to hang out with them, get some nice dinners, maybe go to the beach.
That sounds good. That's a relaxing weekend. Well, hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for popping on. As always, thank you all for listening. You can find me at SteamAct. You can find Taylor at TaylorMac29. You can find Neve at Neve_Clark. Continue to find the Sea Talk podcast at Sea Talk Podcast everywhere across socials as well. Continue to rate, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next edition of the Sea Talk podcast.